Okay, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study today in the book of the prophet Zephaniah. Let's begin reading, and then we'll talk about other things. Zephaniah chapter 3. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. She obeyed not the voice, she received not correction. She trusted not in the Lord. She drew not near to her God. Her princes within her are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. They gnaw not the bones till the morrow. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. The just Lord is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame. I have cut off the nations. Their towers are desolate. I made their streets waste. Then none passeth by. Their cities are destroyed, so that there is no man, that there is none inhabitant. I said, surely thou wilt fear me. Thou wilt receive instruction, so their dwelling should not be cut off. Howsoever I punish them, but they rose early and corrupted all their doings. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. For then will I turn to the people of a pure language. I always say of there, that's wrong. For then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord, to serve him with one consent. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. In that day shalt thou not be ashamed of all thy doings, wherein thou hast transgressed against me. For then I will take away out of the midst of thee them that rejoice in thy pride, and thou shalt no more be haughty because of my holy mountain. I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Sing, O daughter of Zion, shout, O Israel, be glad and rejoice with all the heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. The Lord hath taken away thy judgments. He hath cast out thine enemy, the King of Israel. Even the Lord is in the midst of thee. Thou shalt not see evil any more. In that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, Fear thou not, and to Zion, let not thine hands be slack. The Lord thy God in the midst of thee is mighty. He will save. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his love. That's right. He will rest in his love, and will joy over thee with singing. I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and I will give them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. At that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name and a praise among all the people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, saith the Lord. Now that term of the captivity constantly, in the book of Revelation, in the middle of chapter 13, before it goes on to the second beast, there's this little, if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. There is an end time captivity, and it is for those people who refuse to worship Antichrist. And we are God's dispersed, who are dispersed among the nations, because we have no nation of our own, God's people. There is no such thing outside of the Lord. He is the Lord in the midst of us, our King. Notice the King is the Lord. That is why, that could, this would be a good verse to answer the question that Jesus asked when he cited the Psalms, and he said, what's the meaning of this psalm? It says, the crooked glasses are kind of looking silly. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand till I make thy enemies thy footstool. He says, if he's David's son, then wherefore calleth he him Lord? Because he is the Lord. David calls the Messiah, they understood that to be Messiah. There was no dispute about that. The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thy enemy thy footstool. Though he is David's son, he ultimately is nobody's son. He is only the son of the Father by relationship. I mean, he was genuinely born of, he was the seed of God in that sense, yes. But what I mean is, as it is written in the book of Hebrews, the Son of God has neither father nor mother, nor beginning of days, nor end of life. It's a very important verse because it's one of the strongest ones that really tells us that the Son of God is not just some angel or some other. I'm going to we'll take questions at the end, as per request of the regulars. All right. And, and by the way, I want to mention, I got right into it, but two things. I recently posted a couple of the missing Isaiah studies, and I only have one more I'm going to post today. I had to censor it because I said things I'm not allowed to say, apparently. I uttered some things the government considers misinformation. And so I'm sorry about on the other one, if anyone listened to it. It was very loud beeping. I turned the beeping down on this one, but I'm not going to redo Psalm 1, part 111. But Isaiah part 48 will be going up today, and it's in a version that's sanitized and acceptable. It's annoying. I can't even speculate. I can't even just casually say anything because, oh, God forbid anyone should take you even half seriously. Anyways, second thing is, I don't think I really mentioned, what does this wag his hand mean? She will become a desolation, the beast of the field, everyone to pass it by shall hiss and wag his hand. I think I read it head, because usually it is head. You shake your head. Oh, no. But you can also, there's this whole, ooh, you ever, where they wave their hand back and forth? That's wagging the hand. That sort of thing. And hissing is more, they hissed or whatever, but, they make a noise. Whatever noise that is. Sometimes it's like a sigh. Not much different. The air coming out and all that. We don't need to go into that anymore. Anyways, I just noticed that. Okay, let's start at verse 1 looking at the text here. Well, her that is filthy and polluted, the oppressing city. Now, this is obviously referring to Jerusalem. And, but there, like I said, I don't really care about physical Jerusalem. God doesn't really care about it. I mean, he sort of cares about it, and Satan cares about it. He does, but there's an ultimate level in which there's a Jerusalem that comes down from heaven from God. There's a Jerusalem of which we are all citizens who believe. When we are God's people, we are citizens of that city. In fact, we are that city. That is why Babylon, that's why the whore of Revelation is named after a city. Because a city is not just a bunch of buildings and stuff. It's people. It's the people who live there. That's what the buildings are for, to house the people. Well, there's a sort of juxtaposition of Jerusalem and Babylon. Babylon is just the most one of the most prominent symbols of that city. Because with Babylon, with Assyria, it was Assyria. It wasn't, none of it didn't get personified so much, right? Same thing with Egypt. It wasn't so much, one city. It was like a nation and a king, and Assyria, the same thing. But in Babylon, because the kingdom was a city-state kingdom, and so was Assyria, but they just, I don't know, whatever. But anyways, but Babylon is that city that really got nailed down as typical of the end times, not just of the ultimate evil city. Of the ultimate evil city has gone astray. Much like Sodom and Gomorrah, those are another two great examples. And in fact, they come up a lot along with Babylon. And also the idea of the corruption that is inherent in those places after a time. You can have a bright city on a hill type thing. That's what Jerusalem is supposed to represent. But Jerusalem, when it was corrupted, it becomes something else. That's why in Revelation, when it says that woman is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth, I don't think that it necessarily means it is Jerusalem itself, because in a sense, I think of Washington, at least right now, well, we're falling, but has been kind of that hegemonic power. But what I'm saying is when when the apostasy occurs, and that's what the great whore represents, and that's what this is talking about, that Israel had corrupted themselves. And in Jerusalem is sort of personified in that, is the personification, or is the opposite of the personification, because it's sort of personified as a woman, as a singular unit in different places. And when she does, it's like, just like he said, you were my people, but now you are not my people. Not beloved, not my people, whatever. Not pitied, I think it was. Lo ruhama. Lo ami, not my people. When it becomes like, when the city is corrupted, it's not, but it's supposed to be heavenly Jerusalem. It's supposed to be the people of God. At least they lay claim to that. But instead he regards it as Babylon, the great whore. And same thing with, when he calls, surely of Jerusalem, he says, surely they are become unto me as the inhabitants of Gomorrah and the people thereof as Sodom and Gomorrah. What exactly? I'm not quoting it perfectly. Gomorrah. That's Jeremiah 23 I'm quoting from. They become as Sodom and Gomorrah. They are become altogether like unto Sodom and Gomorrah unto me. Except the Lord had left unto us a very small remnant, Isaiah said in chapter 1 of Isaiah, we would be as Sodom and Gomorrah. They're referring to the destruction. But they are all of them become like unto Sodom and Gomorrah, is what the scriptures say in a few different places. And so also like Babylon. It's not much different. And that's why I played that at the beginning, because that's made me think of this, a filthy and polluted city. She had a wine cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Right? And she also oppresses. In her has found all the blood of prophets and of saints and of all the blood that was shed upon the earth. There's merchandise found in her, slaves and souls of men. And that was one of the accusations of, I believe in Jeremiah, he accused them of not releasing the captives as the law called for. And that says here, they did violence to the law. Now, they did all these things. She obeyed not the voice. She received not correction. The voice is the voice of God. The prophets come and speak the words of God, warning them to amend their ways. But she didn't trust in the Lord. She did not draw near to her God. So I'm saying is like, I don't understand how people can draw parallels with the promises, but not understand the parallels between those who do not obey God and do not listen to God and do God's will, and do the works. Like I said, if you're Abraham's seed, well, then do the works of Abraham. Don't do the works of Esau, who cared nothing for his birthright. And I know it's a mixed multitude over there, but that's the point. It's like you can't just regard one whole unit or a government as being the inheritor of promises. Promises, and like I said, since the New Testament, it's much more diffuse. It's like he doesn't care so much about that Jerusalem as he does the spiritual Jerusalem, which is inhabited by all of his people from all time. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are in that city. They inherit it. We inherit it. All those who are God's people ultimately are part of that city. And people who lay claim to it, just like the churches in Revelation, they claim to be churches, so they're judged as churches. And obviously they have their candlesticks removed out of their place. Just like he says, he gives that guy the one talent. There's some sort of interaction, some sort of relationship with God, but it falls apart because it's not mingled with faith. That's all there is to it. Oh, he believes some things about God. Oh, I know you were an austere man, so I buried your talent in the earth. That's unacceptable. That's not that. It's like, I thought salvation was just like an insurance policy I put in my back pocket, and then I go live my life and just sin as I please, eat and drink and be drunken, and smite my fellow servants, and then God will accept me because I know that Jesus is Christ. It's like, good luck with that strategy. God is not mocked. I'm not going to judge, but it's like, because in the sense, the people could be blind and not realizing how badly they're mocking God. Like when I was young, I didn't realize I was living a life that was in mockery of my faith, calling myself a Christian, but I thought myself so Christian. I was dating a girl, and when she told me she believed in reincarnation, I broke up with her because we could never get married. And But at the same time, here I am a fornicator. Here I am disobedient in many ways. But I didn't understand. And a lot of people don't understand because they're misled. But, we all ought to know in our consciences, and it should eat at us when we don't do what's right. So I got to do what's right. I got to do what's right in the sight of the Lord. Again, it's not a prerequisite for salvation. It's the result of salvation. He guides us to all the truth. So, I look at, like I said, so when I look at these filthy cities, I just look at the cities of the world that filthy and polluted. Right now, Washington, D.C. is a great example of a filthy, polluted, and oppressive city. The prostitute, if it wasn't for Vegas, it would be the prostitution capital of America. It'd be the child trafficking capital of the world. Because we have all this power. We go around trying to overthrow countries. And we got to get rid of Putin. I mean, people are always like, we should be spending on infrastructure at home. I'm like, I'd be happy if we just spent it on anything else, like doing good to people around the world. Instead, let's dig water wells for people that got no water. I'd be willing to endure inflation for that. There's lots of people that don't have clean water to drink. They don't have proper sewage. People in Africa are dying, but we got to spend billions to overthrow the Russians. We don't like the leader, and we think if we get rid of him, well, that'll change everything. That'll change everything. Now, as if that country doesn't have its own interests anyways. We'll just install a puppet who does what we say, like we did in Ukraine. These things aren't always so easy to pull off. They're so arrogant, so foolish, and they're toying with all of our lives. I pray that, I'm glad Putin is a Christian man, because he thinks about things, about like not blowing up the world, and all the lies they tell about. I know he's not an angel. Show me an angel on the Joe Biden is an angel. Oh, he's an absolute lovely, sweet old man. He delayed one shipment of bombs, 2,000-pound bombs, to blow the limbs off of children. He delayed that for almost a week, or maybe it was a whole week. I don't know. I don't want to do. Pretty soon it'll be military misinformation we're going to be getting censored over. You watch. If we say something that contradicts the military narrative, or if we question the progress of the war or how it started, that's going to be misinformation. I'm probably inspiring them already. Like, how can we get that implemented? It's dangerous. It's dangerous. You can't speak. Again, like I said during the pandemic, it's dangerous to keep people from talking about things. That's what's dangerous. To shut up the voice of people. So what if I get a few things wrong? I never claim any claims. I don't think anyone takes everything I say as gospel. If you do, you should cut it out. She drew not near her God. We must draw near God. In America, we claim to be a Christian country. We act like as far as I know, the president still attends church once in a while. Even Trump had a sort of fake religion. He had to kind of talk like he's religious, even though he's never been. Never been particularly religious, but he's got talk the talk. Better, even like I said, sometimes I'm like, well, at least try to at least acknowledge the fact that you have to please us a little bit from these leaders. Anyways, but that talk is not a substitute for actual action. And like I said, I don't care so much about his theological understanding. It's like we negotiate peace. We bring about an end to war and killing, instead of just endlessly approving it in this almost like powerless way. Her princes within her are roaring lions, her judges are evening wolves. They gnaw not the bones till the morrow. That is a verse speaking of their greed. You know what I mean? But also their viciousness. And I think about the way they call, our policy is to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. I mean, that's literally the policy. How the hell can we decide that for a free democratic nation? Why is it we get to decide that for them, but Israel gets to decide for us our policies? That's an interesting little circle of life or whatever. Right? Roaring lions, they love to gnaw the bones, and they finish them all. They finish everything, and then they're hungry again. They don't save anything up for later, and that makes me think about the wild, out of control spending too. because it's like there's nothing left for tomorrow. Nothing for tomorrow. It's just all today, today. We're gonna spend it all today. Not spend. They're just gonna keep printing money until the wheels come off, and then whoever has the most goodies at the end is sort of in good shape. And so I say, I'm like, man, I only take some comfort in my poverty in that I really have no money to lose. Though I don't know how well it's like, like I said, I'm sure if you have a bank account with a lot of money in it, and then suddenly, like, it takes all of that to buy whatever food and stuff. And again, well, you'll have nothing, Paul. Well, no, I got my little acreage. I live surrounded by food and nice neighbors. Getting stuff to sustain me is not going to be so hard. Well, I'm planning against it, and also I trust the Lord ultimately. But I trust the Lord, but I do not just jump into a dangerous situation without preparing what I can. What I can do is what I can do. What I can't do, I can't do. And then I just have to trust the Lord at that point and say, like, well, Lord, I'm in your hands. And if I'm going to say that, I want to make sure I'm not something so filthy he wants to throw me out of his hands. Her prophets are light and treacherous persons. That's how our prophets are, definitely. We have light people, treacherous people, playing the prophet, building up their ministry, trying to, for them building up their ministry means I make money. It's like my ministry being built up means I build people up. I make quality disciples of Jesus. I turn people into quality disciples of Jesus by my instruction, not I don't measure my thing by how much people donate to me, because I don't take donations, or at least I haven't in a long time. And I'm not particularly inclined to, even if I really needed to. I'm that stubborn. Even though I could use the money. It's like, I hate going to anybody for extra money. Can't stand it. But I love talking about money. I do. I love talking about money, especially in the ministry. That's a joke I haven't made in a while. Treachery. Yeah, because their prophecy is treacherous. Very treacherous. Because they preach things that people want to hear. Smooth things. They prophesy not right things, but smooth things, like the rapture theory. The rapture theory, you're going to be all right. You're just going to be whisked away before the danger comes. No. You decadent Americans think you're going to escape the wrath to come while everyone else around the world is suffering already? And you're going to just be whisked away because you know the right formula, because you trust in Jesus, and you also fornicate, look at porn, eat and drink and be drunken. What's wrong with eating and drinking? Well, in the sense of like complacency, not being mindful of the Lord. You just think you got your faith in your back pocket, but in front of you is all the riches of America, all the pleasures of the entertainment, all the things that we can feed ourselves, not just the food and drink of the body, but also the food and drink of the mind. That's what communion is about the true fellowship we have. What is it? It's every word that cometh out of the mouth of God. That's what it is. That's what we live by. When people live by other things, and so the prophecy tends to lead people to complacency, to be settled on their lees, as Zephaniah put it, right? And ultimately, for those who are not, like I've always said, not always said, but I've said in recent years, certainly since I did this Bible study on YouTube, that merely believing the rapture is not going to make people fall away and worship Antichrist, in my opinion. Because everyone might have blind spots. If someone is truly serving Christ and love him and believe in him, and is faithful to Christ, when the rapture doesn't come, they'll be shocked, but they'll recognize Antichrist for who he is, I presume. I think there got to be some people, but I could be wrong. It could be that everyone who believes in the rapture gets deceived. I don't know, because they become so confused. But some people know, because it's like, well, some Christians said that it wasn't so, right? There were people who disagreed, said there was no rapture, and the Antichrist must come first. And if they recognize Antichrist for who he is, then they could very well be spared the apostasy. And I think the degree to which people, like I said, they fear God and they work righteousness, they're accepted. More so than someone who has my doctrine in their mind, but does not, but only holds it there like it's buried under the earth. You know what I mean? That's why I think of burying your talent in the earth. It's like just keeping it all in your head. My faith is all up here. No one else can tell I'm a Christian. I never, there's no strangers who would think that guy's probably a Christian because he did something nice for me that was uncalled for. No one would ever have a reason to ask me of the reason of the hope that lies in me, because they don't see any hope laying in me. They don't see any. Why are you different? My light isn't shining before men. Like that's buried. That's putting your candle under a bushel. Putting your candle under a bushel is a lot like burying your talent in the earth. And it's not something we should do. Well, we should be careful not to be so. I mean, you don't have to go around ostentatiously, oh, I'm so righteous, look at me. But God has ways of providing opportunities for us to do good quietly so he can see it, so he knows in secret who we really are. That we're not just, when I'm on the Bible study, I present one face. I mean, it's kind of true, because when I come here, I'm here to teach and talk. I'm not here to be me and to be, though sometimes I am, maybe I'm here to be, I mostly am me. And I talk about my weaknesses and my infirmities. I've mentioned, I believe, every one of them, but maybe not all the full detail of it. I don't want to make this some sort of almost psychiatric examination of me, though I'm sure there are people that would like to do that. My enemies would have a blast, but I don't care about my enemies, because I know that the Lord is the one. He knows all. He sees me in secret, and I know I got to deal with him. That's why with great fear, I teach and tremble, because we have to deal with him. We have to face him, and I want him to, when he looks at me, he knows me. He knows who I am. Even has a new name for me, a special nickname, or whatever. Light and treacherous persons. Light person, not, like I say, no gravitas. No, doesn't have any weight there. That's one of the things I noticed. A friend of mine asked me to check out this one dude. I'm not going to bring his name up or anything, but he was talking about the sign of Revelation 12, this guy. In his study, I listened to the whole thing, and it was just so void of understanding. And it was just so surface and light. He understood the sky and this and that, and but he didn't have a gift to speak the word of the Lord. It didn't feel like, to me, it was nothing much at all. It was light. And I don't understand. And like I said, all these people get you looking at the stars and all that. And hey, I'm not against that per se. But what does it all mean? What does it mean? What should we do in light of these things? What action should we take? What's coming next? What does that sign really mean? And so the Revelation 12 sign, that was 7 years ago. If you know Revelation 12, you know that at some point after that, the dragon's supposed to come. The devil is supposed to come down onto the earth, having great wrath, for he knows he has but a short time. And so that sign was 7 years ago. Now 7 years have passed. 1,203 score days, it says in there also. So the period of time is long elapsed. So whatever that was, it wasn't much of a sign of anything, because it didn't signify anything. Nothing followed. Well, if a decade later, it expires. If you're going to start making claims of signs of the end, they have an expiration timer on them. If you start saying this is a sign of the end, meaning from Revelation or something like that, this is the fulfillment of that and that, well, then there's an expiration date. It doesn't go on forever after that. You can't have a tribulation that goes 20, 30 years, because it's not 20, 30 years. It's at most 7 or 3.5. I've never been able to figure out how people justify saying one or the other. I always hope it's like 3.5. And maybe the dragon period, the part where Satan's on earth, is only 5 months, maybe? Mentions that. Could be. Oh. The just Lord is in the midst of. Well, but truly, whatever. Her priests have polluted the sanctuary. They have done violence to the law. In our country, we don't have, and like I say, also, if you think about it, like I said, the Jews can't keep the law. I don't think in their country, in that country, I should say, because that's not the Jews, but it's like, in no place where they live, they keep all the law as it's written. Like, if a man, there's a death penalty for adultery. There's a death penalty for not keeping the Sabbath, a whole bunch of things. As far as I know, they haven't been keeping it right for a long time. Now, do I really think they have to? Well, fear God and work righteousness. It's more important than like stoning people. Yes, I mean, Jesus advocated mercy. So I agree with them in their taking a more Christian turn, even if they wouldn't like to call it that. And so when I hear them talk, the ones who are ultra orthodox and ultra religious, I was like, wow, they sound very compatible with my beliefs, except they just don't know Jesus. It makes me long for them to know him, because I'd like to call them brothers. But talking about doing violence to the law, this use of lawfare against people, like the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, they use it against American citizens, which it was never intended to be, just because of very minor connections to having done things with foreign governments, or like they've gone after the president, prosecuted him for things that are, they had to really change. In fact, in New York, in order to prosecute him on one thing, they had to actually change the law so that it applied for this little window, and then they made it expire because they only wanted to get him. When they start going after people instead of crimes, usually you find a crime and then you go try to find out who done it. That's how the law is supposed to work. When prosecutors start looking at certain people and deciding they don't like their politics or something, and then they start looking for a crime, there must be something there. That is dangerous. And our country is now full of that. Because the priests don't determine the law in our country, but there is a law. And it's not the law of God, but the law of the land should be respected. In as much as it does not contradict the law of Christ. If the law of the land asks me to do something that is actually unrighteous or against my conscience, then I don't do it. That's why I rebelled during the pandemic, because I was like, I ain't locking down and I ain't not gathering together. That's one of the the right of the people to peaceably assemble is a absolute right. I don't care what's going on. That's for me to decide and the people I assemble with. You can't do that. You'll spread disease. I don't think you really understand. Rights are not just for good times. I don't believe in this. We suspend your rights when things get bad. Or we suspend elections because there's a war like they did in Ukraine. Oh, we're not going to have an election because we're in the middle of a war. Because they don't want the democratic people, they don't want democracy to actually work and the people to decide if they want to keep fighting. Oh, no, you can't decide. We decided we can't back out of this. America actually decided that we can't back out of this, but we're going to pretend like we decided it. They decided it with all the billions we give them. Very rich getting over there, the people at the top, as they slaughter their inhabitants. And don't think the people at the top in our country care one whit about us. They don't. If whatever they can get away with, they will get away with. So I said in my song, Do You Believe in Science? They don't, they'll sell you body and soul, dead or alive. They don't care. They don't care about you. And your life doesn't matter to them. If they can make a buck off of you, they'll make a buck and they'll take it. And then you can just go sleep in the dirt. They don't care. They do not care one bit. They think the world is theirs for the taking. And they're trying to take. They're hungry wolves. They'll eat you up. Eat you up for dinner, lunch, and breakfast. And they want to eat the people up. Polluting the sanctuary. In their time, Ezekiel goes into great detail of, they're worshiping the sun. They were Asherah in the temple. There was a house of sodomites just next to the temple, which is enough. The just Lord in the midst thereof, he will not do iniquity. God doesn't do sin, not iniquity. He brings about evil. There's a difference. God will do evil. He will bring evil upon them, upon his enemies. Oh, yes. He creates evil all the time. Even the way in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He planted it right there, and it's a tree that kills you if you eat the fruit thereof. Or makes you subject to death is the way I would prefer to put it. But, just to be quite blunt, you will die. The just Lord in the midst thereof, he will do no iniquity. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not. But the unjust knoweth no shame. God's word is always speaking. His voice is not just in the words of the prophets, but every one of us who knows God, if we have the Holy Spirit, or even if he's just with us, we can hear his voice. Each of us is made in God's image. We have a conscience that will accuse and excuse ourselves, but also is kind of revealing what we think is right and wrong. And if we don't harden ourselves to what it means, and understand what we are actually doing, when we do this action or we condemn someone else for doing something that we do, when we don't see that, we are endangering ourselves, because hypocrisy is not, it's kind of the antithesis of faith, really. Because why are you acting in such a way for people to see, but you really do other things when people aren't looking? Why are you apart instead of being what you are? Because they know what they are is disgusting, and they don't want it to be brought to light. Like I said, the Congress people, so many of those people are the companions of prostitutes, and they themselves are prostitutes in a more metaphorical sense. That's what Joe Biden went to Washington to become, to prostitute himself, to sell himself out to the corporate interests. And boy, his family has gotten rich doing it. And the system is so corrupt that it doesn't want to go after him. You have a corrupt politician just plain as day sitting in front of everything. And he's about the worst person you could ask to be president because he's almost senile. I'm sure on Thursday when he goes to the debate, he'll be all jacked up on methamphetamines and stuff or whatever. There's political misinformation. Well, you watch. Whatever. I don't care. I'll just put the beeps in. And then this, because it's like, I'm being censored by the government. They're getting YouTube. They're being their cat's paw. I don't blame YouTube so much. They're under pressure. When they get a call from the NSA or the CIA or the FBI, I don't know who's talking to them, from the Disinformation Government Board. Disinformation government people is what I should say, because the board has been disbanded, but the people are still doing their disinformation governing. They're the disinformation. They're the misinformation. Disinformation, whatever. Disinformation is information that's true, but it's harmful to the government. Blah, blah. That's why all my, or is that malinformation? Whatever. God doesn't do evil. He doesn't do sin. He does not truck with it either. He doesn't want us to be doers of iniquity. That's what he said. What he says to those who appear before him when he returns, they'll say, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, done many wonderful works in your name? Cast out devils in your name. And he said, I will turn to them and say, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity. We have to work righteousness. To be saved, well, it's what saved people do. If you have faith, you're going to work righteousness because you serve a righteous Lord. I got saved because of the mercy of God. That's what saved me. Nothing, no by works of any righteousness I did. I couldn't even have faith if he hadn't opened my eyes. You know what I mean? Like Jesus said to Peter, when Peter declared that he was the Christ, the Son of the Most High. He said, Blessed are your eyes, for flesh and blood hath not revealed this unto you. That's why it's blessed, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. He that hath eyes to see, let him see. Because you have to be given your sight from God before you can even think of having faith in him. Because you look around, you look at how many people in this world are blind. They can't see, they can't see that there's something up, that there's more to this than just what appears before your eyes, that God doesn't have something to do. There isn't some sort of God looking over these things, that the evil that men do is not going to be judged. Oh, okay, laugh at it. Do as you please, because that's just what he wants to see. What are you pleased to do? What is your pleasure? God grants me my heart's desire, because he's judged it pure. At least the pure things I do. He knew what I meant. But when I was there, all I asked for was pure and good things. So that's my heart's desire. My flesh desires other things, but my heart, he has been purified by his blood and his word. Not that I'm trying to boast. I'd rather boast in my iniquity or my infirmities, my weaknesses. My weaknesses lead to iniquity. I don't have iniquity to boast in. I don't want to boast in that. What I mean is infirmities. That's what Paul said. I will boast of my infirmities. And sometimes that means talking about my mistakes and my sins. Some of them, because some of them aren't particularly, it's like, oh, I didn't help a guy. That is sin. I missed the mark. I did not live up to what Christ said, but it's not exactly iniquity. You know what I mean? We're called to something so much higher than mere, oh, I don't commit adultery or do any of these outward sins. No. It's even my mind matters. It's funny. People get it that their mind matters. So they're like, okay, I believe in Jesus. That's cool. I'll just keep that buried. But again, not to the extent that we bury it. It should have an effect in transforming our minds and transforming our lives. It doesn't always happen in a moment, in an instant, in the twinkling of an eye, like the resurrection, but it will be fulfilled in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, in the resurrection, when we come to perfection in him, when we have our bodies redeemed. Also, even the temptations that are inherent in the flesh will be taken away. That doesn't mean all temptation is taken away. Otherwise, how did Satan sin? You know what I mean? If it's just the flesh, it's not just the flesh that can sin. There's sins of the heart. All right, let's go on. He brings his judgment to light. All you have to do is look for it. All you have to do is seek it. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened to you. I am a knocking one. I've been knocking. And I've been getting. I don't know what other people are doing. Strange to me. But the unjust know no shame. They become shameless. Because why? Because the God doesn't immediately judge them. Because things are allowed to go on. And the judgment does not immediately proceed from God. If you saw someone sin and then a bolt of lightning struck them, and that happened every time someone did something wrong, there wouldn't be any people left. But if it was something like that, there was immediate judgment carried out. If the clouds opened, he said, hey, what are you doing down there? Like I said, we might still sin in his sight. Look what happened in Exodus. Certainly some of us would still sin. I'd like to think that I would not be among them. I like to, I'll be Caleb and Joshua. Notice there was only 2 out of the whole bunch of them of that generation. There were only 2 who were worthy to enter the land. Of all the generation that came out of Egypt aged 40 and above, because those were the ones he held responsible. I remember when I reached 40, and it's weird because they say your brain matures at 25. I think it matures like at 40 or something. It may mature at 25 or whatever for a man, for a woman, it's a little earlier. It may be mature, but it's still empty. It's still mostly empty of experience. You may have a lot of knowledge, but knowledge isn't the same as actually living it. Anyways. Violence to law, the Lord, and they did violence to I mentioned that because they didn't keep the commandments. They didn't free the slaves. They didn't free the captives. They kept people captive. They kept back the wages. They did all sorts of evil. They oppressed the fatherless and the widow. In our country, like I said, we're shipping billions of dollars for wars to kill people that we shouldn't have a gripe with. But because we've stirred up trouble, because we want to put because our country is obsessed. Our leadership, not our country. The leadership of the government is obsessed with putting their little marker on every square, on every little country in that risk board. They want to, we got to have this one. We need to topple Russia. We got world domination. They are completely possessed of this beast-like spirit to trample and to do. They're just going like a wild beast. Like I said, I think the next book we're doing is Revelation. As long as I can get my act together, I want to do a new version of Revelation. Someone commented recently. I was like, yeah, I wanted to update that. Like what a synagogue of Satan looks like. Well, I don't know if this is the synagogue of Satan, but sure, look, this is what one of them looks like, Synagogue of Satan is when people claim to be Jews, but they don't act like Jews. And I think that the Orthodox rabbis can appreciate that. Like I said, not that ethnic Jews should be mistreated. No ethnicity should be mistreated. If someone thinks they're Jewish because of their ethnicity, because they were born into a Jewish family, hey, I love you too. I'd like to teach you about Jesus since you don't care much about the Torah. But I'd like to preach the gospel to you, of course, to all of them, because the gospel goes to all the people of the world, all all the sinners. All us sinners need to have the gospel preached to us. To every nation it should be preached. And it's being preached to them, but often by people who I'm shocked at their blindness. Because they will excuse. We've had a lot of stories fed us over the years. Like I said, I only recently came out of it, so I try not to be too animated in my disgust with the thing. A lot of us just don't pay close attention to what's going on in the world because all we care about is our little myopic world in our country. But our country is going around the world stomping on people's heads. We killed 1 million people in Iraq. We killed tens of, if not hundreds of thousands in Afghanistan. And what did any of those wars gain us? It gained some military contractors money, and I guess the people that work in those factories some jobs. But overall, it's like you can't measure it by a few people prospered. But what about the rest of the country? Like I said, I would have rather spent money just doing, if we got to send money overseas, let's dig wells and put in sewers and stuff. And let's build cultural centers. I don't care. I mean, anything except just bombing the heck out of people. It just doesn't seem to me to be a very wise way to use this awesome power we had, where we were suddenly in control of the globe. It was for the most part, right? Russia, the Soviet Union had fallen. Russia was weak. China is still not much of a power at that time. And now they're rising, but we don't see that. We don't realize what's going on. And we think we can just do as we will. I say we, but it's they. I certainly don't think that way. I used to kind of think that way. I bought into the Iraq war at first. I thought, let's go and bring democracy and freedom to people. It would seem plausibly. They hate us because we're free. Not that they hate us because we kill people in their countries. I mean, if people were over here killing people in our country, a lot of people would be taking up arms and stuff. And they'd be doing it with the Bible in one hand and a shotgun in the other. Even though that's wrong. Like I said, at least they have a doctrine of jihad. We don't have a doctrine of jihad in Christianity. Yeah, we make holy war. I understand how people might feel that crusades were necessary. Some people do. They feel like we're just finally pushing back on all this Islamic encroachment. Why were they there in the first place? Why did God allow that to rise? Was it not to provoke us to jealousy? As we rose to provoke the Jews to jealousy, in a sense, to be, why, of old, why do the nations fall? Because they did not draw near to their God. Why did Byzantium fall and become Istanbul? Or not Byzantium, Constantinople. It was called Byzantium, then it became Constantinople. Why did that fall to the Muslims? Because the you ever heard when they talk about things being Byzantine? They're almost Byzantine in their attitude towards this. It means kind of like draconian, very similar. Harsh is what it means. Byzantine means harsh. They were harsh as often. And, again, a lot of the Christianity of the so-called Christian empire was just enforced top down. Like, how could Constantine, it's the official religion of the Roman Empire or whatever. No, he didn't do that. That was actually Diocletian, I think. But I think that's right. It's no big deal. But Constantine was the first emperor to convert. And then later on, the whole empire was converted. Then we converted all the Germans at once. That's not going to be very, that's not exactly, at some point the church decided, hey, if we just get the king to accept the gospel, then we get everybody. That's not really how it's supposed to work. And so in many of those Christian nations, everyone has a very superficial Christianity. And that's why they've fallen away from it. That's why, we're losing our faith. No, nobody ever hardly had faith. It was just part of society. It's just religion. The depths of the Christian faith are not plumbed by most of the Christian believers. Come on. We got light and treacherous persons for prophets. We got polluted priests. And the priests of the Christian church, we have some. We don't need them, but we do. They've polluted the sanctuary. touching children in the sanctuary where they ought not. I mean, come on. Or, and all the other things they bring in pollutions. I had a relative who was a priest, and I never heard anything morally good about the man. Because again, a lot of Christians do take the attitude is you just, as long as you perform the rituals to get rid of your sins, you're fine. Just, who cares? Just sin. I said, surely thou wilt fear me. I skipped a verse. I skipped 2. No, I didn't. The unjust don't know shame. I have cut off the nations. Their towers are desolate. I made their streets waste, that none passeth by. Their cities are destroyed. This is prophecy. This is yet in Zephaniah's day yet to come. But also, again, in the ultimate apocalypse, there's an ultimate version of this where all the cities of the nations get broken down. And they will be broken down. All the cities on the earth are going to fall. Every single one of them. They're all going to collapse. Not just from the initial things that will cause the chaos to ensue. Like perhaps if we get first hit with some sort of electromagnetic pulse and some impactors, taking out all the electricity or most of it or a lot of it. Who knows exactly? That part I don't know exactly. But I think I understand where the first impactors come from. Where the hail. And when all this comes to pass, ultimately at the end there's going to be an earthquake so great, it's going to shake everything down to its foundations. I think as Paul said, so that those things which cannot be shaken are the only things that remain. The shaking of all those things, bringing them all down. Everything we've built is going to be shook to the ground. And we Christians, God is going to take what we've built and he's going to put it on his altar and see what it's made of. Jesus is going to say, because I'll be in the resurrection. He's going to say, okay, Paul, let's look at your works. What remains? Because not everything's going to remain. And that's right. Some things are meant to pass away. They're not, some things are the belly, meat for the belly for meat. I don't expect my garden to last into the infinity. Though I've worked hard on it. I know eventually nature takes things over and stuff if you don't keep it up. But there are other gardens to tend, other houses to build. When you have all of that future, there's so much that can be continued. And like I said, I think productive work is what life is all about. It's only in getting old and weak that we are not able to work. Well, lots of people work right into their old age. Because it keeps you kind of young in a way, because if you don't if you just become totally settled on your lees, you're going to stagnate, and it's not entirely, it's not a good thing. I was going to say entirely. It's not at all a good thing. And so, cities destroyed, inhabitant. And there's none inhabitant because the Babylonians deported a lot of people. And that's somewhat of a the cities are broken down and people don't live in them. People end up living in the countryside. And it says that too. It'll be a poorer people. They're the keepers of sheep. That means the people have to just kind of go back to the land that remain. And then he said, surely thou wilt fear me. You will receive instruction. Surely you're gonna fear me and receive instruction, so you won't lose your dwelling, your life even, because there's the tabernacle of the flesh. Also, we have a dwelling place right here, right now. We have a dwelling place in the heavens which cannot be taken away, if we have faith, because faith is required for salvation. That's for sure, right? Faith does save us. In the sense, because we receive his mercy by faith. So they work together. But faith always does, true faith is going to work out something more. Again, it's just, all we need is his mercy, and then faith comes to us. And faith, it is by grace through faith that you're saved. Faith is not something you do of yourself. It is the gift of God. It is the gift of God. And Jesus made that clear. It's like, and also when it says that in Galatians, that not of yourself, that's Ephesians. It is the gift of God. I think Paul means faith is the gift of God, even though obviously mercy is. But here's the thing, why would mercy of myself? That doesn't make sense, right? The only thing I would be tempted to think was of myself is faith. I might think, oh, faith is of myself because I provide the faith, right? By my free will, I stir up faith. That's not what the Bible teaches. And I'm not denying that we have free will. I'm just denying that that's not how faith works. Faith is not a free will choice. It is something that you are blessed to have, that your eyes can see it, can know, to see the hidden wisdom that this is God and I should fear him. And again, it's not that God is actually incredulous, but it's expressed this way because it's an anthropomorphism. It's made to be accessible by humans. If God just talked to us the way, in a dry way, it's supposed to get our attention. And it gets my attention, I get excited. Because I'm like, oh, I feel about that way. That's how I feel about it. In my free will, free will existence down here on the earth where I don't have an eternal perspective and I don't know the end from the beginning. You know what I mean? This is accessible to me. If he were to talk to me as he, in his own mind, understands things, that would not be accessible. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. And it wouldn't convey how we ought to feel about it. Because you'd think. I mean, like I said, I love when Jesus says, don't think I didn't come to destroy the law. Not destroy, fulfill. We don't say destroy, let's say fulfill. Because that's really what it means. Fulfill and destroy. Because in a sense, because he says, not one jot or tittle will be passed till all be fulfilled. And he said he came to fulfill it. And he did. Howsoever I punish them. So the one should not be caught, because in the way, I'm not sure what howsoever, that's such a weird, we don't use howsoever. We usually say whatsoever. But, I honestly, if we just said however I punish them, meaning in whatever manner I chose to punish them, they would take heed to it, so that they wouldn't be cut off from their dwellings. I almost want to see what did the NIV do with that one, or one of the other translations. I don't think I'm actually going to bring it up on screen. I'll just read it to you. We're almost done here. I think I have to check, make sure that's a good place to stop. Because always the place is more important to me than the actual. Okay, all right. We're in Zephaniah, and this is verse 7, and we have. Where is... let's see that NIV. That's fine. Of Jerusalem I thought, surely... See what I mean, interpreting? Surely thou wilt fear me. They're like, we got to insert Jerusalem there so they understand the context. I'm going to bring it up on screen. That's what I'm saying. You read the NIV, you're not reading the original. You're not getting a translation. You're getting an interpretation. And some parts are translated, but it's definitely a interpretation. Of Jerusalem I thought, surely you will fear me and accept correction. Then her place of refuge would not be destroyed. Whatever. Again, nor all my punishments come upon her. I'm wondering about the howsoever. Oh, the punishment. Howsoever is what? Who, which, or that. Oh, whatever. I guess the which sounds good to me, actually. Wait, what was that again? Let me see that. What were they saying? Howsoever, and they say, nor all my punishments come upon her. So the place wouldn't be destroyed, nor all my punishments come upon her. Whatever. That's fine for an interpretation, because that's the basic sentiment. I mean, of course. I was just looking for a little help with the translation. I get what it means. He's saying, hey, you can avoid this, right? Instead of me punishing you. Because again, correction, instruction is different than God's wrath. Like a certain level of punishment. There's punishment for the wicked, but there's also punishment for children. You don't put some parents really go astray when they confuse the kind of punishment a loving parent is supposed to dish out with the kind of punishment the wicked truly deserve. The point of punishing your children is to help correct their behavior. And so it shouldn't be too harsh, and it should be intelligible. They should be able to understand what's going on. But ultimately, if they don't listen, there are consequences for children who do not obey their parents. They grow up into be people who run afoul of the law and who run afoul of the justice system and find themselves in bad places. Or the victims of diseases. Don't fornicate, don't do this, and then they go out and see prostitutes. Well, there's consequences, especially if you continue in those things. They rose early and corrupted all their doings. The Lord rises up early and sends his prophets, right? But they rise up early and go right to work doing evil. I mean, like I said, there's different levels of sinning. It's like there's some people, it's like I said, something just overtakes you in a moment of uncertainty, and like when I failed to help that guy with his stuff. He didn't ask for my help. I just kind of thought it. I was driving on the other, it was a 4-lane highway, and I was on the other side. I would have had to make a U-turn, but I should have done it, right? I should have done that. I didn't do that, but I should have done it, But that was just something that came along. That's not exactly getting up early to do evil, getting up early to start following corrupt ways. Right? Maybe a far cry. I'm just saying that for your sake, so you understand. It's there. We don't want to. We can't fall into that kind of iniquity. And then also, we can't just think to ourselves, "Oh, my level of iniquity is okay." Never be complacent. No kind of complacence. Most of my not sinning has to do with me being a naturally reluctant person to transgress. I don't have a lot of transgressive in me, but that doesn't make my sins less important. Because it's not just who does murder, it's who is angry with his brother. Because if I start filling myself with hypocrisy and self-righteousness, God doesn't like that either. So I'll end up being a smoke in his nose, a fire burning all day, just annoying him. And I don't want to be that. And then when I see him, I'll be like, I don't know who you are, you hypocrite. You're not mine. No, can't do that. So that's why, though we might know, I wouldn't want to be like the Pharisee. Thank you, Lord, for not making me like this sinner over here. It's like, I know I'm made a little different, but that means I have an even higher standard. I got to hold myself to a higher standard, a much higher standard. And if I fail to do it, I'm as guilty as anybody, because I'm working with different tools. Every person has a gifts and stuff, and how you use them is very important. Just because, you can't just think, because I'm naturally a goody-goody. Well, I don't have anything to worry about. There's always things to be considered. I don't like to use worry so much, but to be considered, to take heed to. Okay. Let me see. How many verses we got left? 20. There's 20. And honestly, when I started this chapter, I thought we'd finish it. But there's so much to say here. And I got something to say. Let's see, what time are we at? Yeah, we're 104. Let's see. However, I punished them, but they rose early, corrupted all theirs. Doing, wait on me, saith. Let's not quite stop there. We'll start at verse 9. Let's look at verse 8. This is the last verse we'll look at today. Yeah, because then it gets into this different mode of speaking, and so we can just kind of, because this is the therefore. What's the therefore connected to? Well, everything we've said so far. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith the Lord. That is a very critical thing. The scriptures often say, wait on the Lord. What does that mean? Well, we got to exercise patience. And, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and faith of the saints. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. He will bring justice. Wait on the Lord. He will deliver you. Wait on the Lord. He will provide. If you've read the Bible, you know all the things that God has promised. He will give his angels charge over you to bear you up in their wings. Or to put their wings over you, lest a stone hit you in the head. Lest I dash thy foot against a stone, or lest a stone come down on your head. I know bad things are coming. I don't know exactly when. The end times still haven't begun, but I'm convinced that it will be, unless I die early, before I'm a very old man, we're going to see some major calamities befall the earth, a major, major destruction. And hopefully it'll be the end times, and then at the end of it, the Lord will come and save us out of it. And we don't have to somehow endure this and then wait for him to come later. because the earth has had a lot of bad times. And think about how many people, was it like a third of the population of Europe died during the Black Plague, or was that the whole world? I forget exactly. It wouldn't have been the whole world, but it might have been Eurasia or something like that. Or if that was Bhutan, whatever. There have been plagues. There have been bad years, 536 or 532, whatever. When the volcanic eruptions happen, the mini ice age, all that stuff. Bad things can happen, and it's not the end of the world. It's just the end of an age or a thing. Like the pandemic was a calamity that changed the world and changed the way I look at I changed the way I look at my neighbors. Not my neighbors, actually, but my further neighbors, the other people who live in the area, just how sheep-like we can be. I understand. If I didn't just have such conviction in my heart that I've got to do it, even though I don't like standing out. I like being on stage, but I don't. That's because I'm supposed to be there. Get up on stage and do the thing, and we want to see what you're going to do. People are there to see. They're paying attention. But to make a spectacle in the public, that is definitely against my nature. I don't like to be a spectacle. It's just I like to follow the rules. I like to follow the rules, and when the rules go up against what my conscience tells me is right, then I have no choice. I've got to go against them, and I hate it. I'm not gonna. Like I said, it's gonna drive me nuts when they all start worshiping Antichrist, and then I gotta go tell them not to. That's hard for me, because they're gonna hate me. I don't like that. I don't like to be hated. I remember when I left high school, I was kind of proud of myself, I'll just say. I didn't have any enemies in high school. My worst enemy was like among my friends, and he wasn't really an enemy, and he's not my enemy now. I know he hated me for a while. With good reason. I was a jerk, I was a careless, light, frivolous jerk, and I didn't mean to be. I thought I was being playful, but it can irk someone, when we're just so light and we treat them lightly and frivolous and like a joke. No one likes to be the butt of anyone else's joke, even if it's meant in good, it's meant in the most friendly way. Wait on me until the day that I rise up to the prey. The Lord also is a lion, and he will roar. He will roar. The Lion of Judah will roar, and he will rip and tear, and none will deliver out of his hand. They are lions, sure, but they're not the order of lion that he is. For my determination is to gather the nations. Come and gather yourselves together to the supper of the great God. Oh, that's for the birds. But the nations will be gathered to that place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. That I may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them mine indignation. I don't think that is now, by the way. The Armageddon is way at the end of things. And they gather really to the Antichrist to, I think, to go out and fight Christ at his return. Or what? I'm not sure exactly. It's a little fuzzy on a lot of things in Revelation are a bit fuzzy because we see through a glass darkly, and it is given in symbolism, and it's hard to tell sometimes what's literal and what's symbolic. Like I said about the second death and eternal torment, there's got to be a choice made there. One is literal and one is some sort of spiritual or symbolic thing, right? And it's just a marvel to me that for most of history, most teachers have chosen to interpret death is just a spiritual thing. It's not real. Nobody dies. We're all immortals. God only has immortality. 1 Timothy 6:16. I still remember that verse number. God, he who only has immortality is God. He is the immortal one. No one else has it as an innate characteristic. It is a gift of God that we may obtain through the blood of Jesus, through our faith in him, through the mercy of God. But take heed. Don't take it for granted. You want to live? Then have faith. And when I say have faith, I mean be faithful. That's what having faith is. It's not just about it's not like the thing I earnestly believe in my mind. Ooh, I really think it. Oh, Jesus rose from the dead. It's my brain thinking it. Ugh, and I just keep it in there. I don't let it affect anything else in my life. Nope. Close my eyes and just keep it in there. Don't want to let that out. Don't want to let that faith out into actually controlling my body. See, that's the thing. That's a mistake. That's why James said, how can you separate faith from works? I can show you show me your faith without your works. I'll show you my faith by my works. Your faith trapped up in your brain is insufficient, not for salvation, but insufficient faith. That which you seem to have, even that will be taken from you. Okay, and again, we will pick it up at verse 9. I didn't finish verse 8. There's a little more here. They may assemble the kingdoms to pour upon them mine indignation. Even my fierce anger for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. Ultimately, that is true. There will be fire from the sun. Men will be scorched with great heat. But of course, even the Lord himself, the wrath of the sword that comes out of his mouth. The remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat on the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth. And all the fowls were filled with their flesh. The birds are going to be hungry, and they will be gathered to take advantage of the bounty that God will provide them at that great battle. Of course, Zephaniah was thinking of the king of Babylon coming, but he also, in his prophetic vision, you can see he gives a much wider thing. Though remember, all the earth is Haaretz, which also means the land. It doesn't necessarily mean the planet Earth, but it can also mean that, right? Because it's not any different than the beginning. God made the heavens and the earth. So it can refer to, just like our word earth can refer to just a handful of it. You know what I mean? Oh, look at, here's the earth. But we usually don't, and even when we're standing in a location, we say, look at the earth. We mean the ground under our feet. But the planet Earth, it doesn't necessarily refer to that, but it can. And like I said, I do think that the prophets, when they speak of these things in their times, the Holy Spirit is also giving them insight into the ultimate version of these things, the ultimate provocation of God's wrath. When all the Christians of the world who are supposedly faithfully waiting for him, from among them there's a great apostasy, where they turn aside and they say, whoa, I and none else. We are the queen. We're the queen. We're not a widow. He's come back. He's come back, but it's not him. But to defend that lie. You see now how to defend the lie of the synagogue of Satan. To defend the lie of Zionism. They will condone all kinds of bloodshed and mayhem. And they'll applaud it and say, well, that's war. Well, it's unfortunate children get killed, but these people, they're going to grow up to be terrorists. And they make apology for it. They advocate for it. They cheer it on. They probably write their congressman to keep helping it, even though they're losing. As far as they're losing the fight they claim they were fighting. Certainly they're killing a lot of Palestinians, but they're not defeating Hamas. In fact, their Minister of Defense recently came out and said they can't defeat Hamas because it's an ideology. And also, they're taking tremendous losses. I mean, not the number they put out, wasn't it like 7,000 wounded, permanently disabled? And that's a lot. And they only claim a few hundreds of casualties, of deaths. Actually, wounded is casualties, by the way. So that's thousands of they've lost thousands of soldiers. They can't fight no more. They're either they're out of action, and they're not a big country. If that was us. You'd have to multiply. That would be like we lost 100, 200,000 men. And, I think they're gearing up to kill about 2 or 3, 4, 500,000 of us. They want to send our children to Russia probably, or maybe to China. We don't need war with China. It's a huge country. And over in their lands. And island of Taiwan was always considered part of China. I know the Taiwanese, they got to work that out. That's none of our business. That's foreign entanglements. They probably could peaceably resolve it, but I think we're not going to allow that. Anyways, not that I'm for the communist Chinese, but it's like, they're going to be the biggest Christian country in the world in like 20, 30 years. Just because there's so many people there. They won't be the biggest by percentage, you know. But I mean, we got to have the patience. We got to wait on God to act. And you know, it's good to defend your country and to be strong to prevent invasion and all that. But that comes first from being morally strong. And that moral strength will help prevent people from wanting to hurt you. Our lack of moral character in the world is making people hate us more and more. We're making more enemies and worse. I mean, we didn't have to have the Russians as an enemy anymore. But we insisted. We insisted. And that, you know, like I said, that could lead to calamity of its own. You know, I pray, I never thought we'd have nuclear war, but we're certainly, I mean, men are foolish enough. You know, it's like, I don't know. Men are foolish enough. God protect us, man. So I'm glad I'm glad the world has Vladimir Putin to have a somewhat level head in the face of such provocation. I said, but I'm afraid they're going to try. They keep baiting him. Yesterday they attacked a beach in Russia with our cluster munitions, using missiles that only Americans know how to work. You know, they tell us what they want to hit, and we'll get the GPS and our technician. You can't be a foreigner operating these things, as I understand it, or maybe that's military misinformation. I don't care. I'm against it. And, like I said, if people want death, they can run to it, and it will find them, at least for now. There will be a day when they will wish they could die, but it won't be there anymore. Because you won't be able to find, men will seek death and shall not find it. Shall desire to die, but death shall flee from them. I don't know, I wonder, well, that, what do you mean by that, Paul? What does that mean? It could mean different things. One thing that occurs to me, I thought, maybe it's because it was about the scorpions and their torment. If you think that if the devil and his angels appear and you think it's Jesus and his angels, suicide is kind of not an option. You'll wish you could die, but you'll be afraid to die because you'll just be, like there's no point. Like it's even scarier, the thought of death, because I can't imagine that it's people like literally going like, I can't die, stabbing myself, I blew out my brains, but I'm still alive. It's hard for me to think it's that. I think it's more like in their heads, they're looking for a way out, death. If only I could just die and be gone. But no, when I die, I'll just be facing the same thing. There's no escape. There's no escape. Because when they see the supernatural beings and they start talking to us or whatever they got, whatever their spiel is going to be, the torment, there's going to be a lot of torment. A lot of torment for those who know not God. Anyways, thanks for joining me in this study. We'll be back again tomorrow, probably to finish up Zephaniah. Until then, also, like I said, I'm going to upload pretty soon today, probably just after this, the final missing study from Isaiah, part 48, which was censored by the CDC, by their rules or whatever. They don't like anything that contradicts what the CDC says or what the pharmaceutical companies say or whatever. I don't know. So other people seem to get away with it. It's weird that I'll hear things on YouTube and then I'll repeat them on my Bible study, but I don't get to say it. Okay. Oh, whatever. Anyhow, thanks for joining me. Remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is also the fulfillment of the law.